Hey guys, welcome back to Anchored and Devoted. I'm Pastor Jer.
And I'm Pastor Joseph.
Everyone say hello to Pastor Joseph. Hello, Pastor Joseph. It's good to see you this morning.
It's good to see you too.
Thank you. I'm glad to be seen.
I like your voice.
I'm glad to be seeing, and I'm glad to be seen.
I like the shirt. It's nice.
Thank you. Again, it's pink. That goes back to the episode that actually dropped back in mid-September. We're talking about your green shirt and my love of both green and pink.
There you go.
So there it is. Dave, we're going to pick up where we left off in the last episode with part 2 of what we're calling grit versus quit.
Oh, okay.
Grit versus quit.
That's what we're doing today. Great.
That's what we're doing. Yeah, because when we ended the episode earlier this week, probably, maybe late last week, who knows? It's one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Where we left it was we talked through the theory of it.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to the end and we said, hey, let's talk a little bit more nuts and bolts practically about what this looks like. Like, what are the buckets that our reasons fall into for why we would pull the plug, why we would rip the ejection cord. I don't think it's an ejection cord. Dave, is it an ejection cord? It's the only person here who has skydived.
Let's not worry about ejecting. You jump out of the plane, that's perfectly fine. There's no ejector button. You jump out of it. It's perfect. Right. Anyway, let's
either pull the ejection handle or pull the rip cord. Both kind of do the same thing. They put you into a different state quickly.
Yes, and I'm pulling it right now for this whatever this is. So when it comes to one of the things that I try and wrestle through when it comes to whether to stay or to go, the bigger thing, there are certain underlying questions and then there's an overarching question. And we kind of hit on it in the last episode. The overarching question is, God, what are you doing? And what do you want? Right. And so that has nothing to do with the organization or the person, or it's just simply, God, what do you want me to do? And
right. Yeah, absolutely.
You could try and blame it on the issue that's in front of you, or you could try and blame it on your unwillingness to wrestle with tough issues. But there does need to be a true wrestling with, God, what are you doing? Yes, there are those other questions that I should be asking. But the overarching one of, God, what would you have me to do? Is this time for me to stay or to go? And that's not based off of how I feel, but what you are doing, and where I am. And so we talked about that even when it comes to church and church hurt and how to engage. And if you don't take the time to pray, then the other sub questions can become the main thing, when it should be, no, I need to spend some time. And it might require fasting and praying, so that once you know, then those other things can be addressed. Once you know clearly, oh, this is where I've either stepped out of bounds, or this is something where I took on more than I was supposed to, and God is trying to help me, and he also needs me to get ready for this next season or whatever. Like, I need to move on. It's not I'm fed up with so-and-so and I'm leaving. No, right. That's not it. That can be one of the things that helps you see that the season is coming to a close. But that shouldn't be the only thing. So in the conversation I had with this next lady, we talked about different things that were signs of, the season has changed. These are signs that it's time to go. Kind of like you're getting frustrated all the time, and you're feeling like your voice isn't heard, and you're feeling disrespected often. Okay, you know what? That's not a reason to leave. God could want you to stay in this. But then after taking some time to pray and fast, it was clear for her and she felt released. She felt free and able to say, you know what? I understand what you were talking about. It's not that the need or that desire to want to fix it or to see it made better isn't still there, but there is a realization for me that I don't have to do it, that God is in charge. And so therefore I need to look for what does he want me to do or what is he calling you to? And so that became the question of like, hey, you can look at your life and look in the past and see that there is a calling on your life, that you do have certain gifts that are given by the Spirit of God. How are they aligning with what you're doing now? And what is it that you're seeing that God is putting on your heart? As she took some time to wrestle with that, it became clear that God was setting her up to win and do some other things. And then it was, okay, you know what? It is time for a transition. Like, this makes sense now. It's not that you're running from something, but you're actually running to obey. And it made it so that time was generous and gracious and not a reactionary thing of, I'm fed up with you, so here's my 2 weeks notice, I'm done. It became a thing where it could be, no, I'm going to something, and so I can talk about what I'm going to freely, knowing that those things that need to be addressed, I've done my part by using my voice to challenge them, with the understanding that I don't need to be upset or angry or frustrated if no change takes place, because I've been obedient and I am going to be obedient to what God has called me to. It's like, yeah, that is a better way to know when it is time to quit, as opposed to just saying my emotions are the only reason I know, or I've got an offer that seems amazing, and so therefore I need to quit the other side. Again, my emotions are still driving me, but I have no clue why the last person left that role. It's always humbling. It's like buying a used car. You don't take the time to think, I wonder why this used car is here with such low mileage. And it has 4 owners prior to it. Probably because it's a lemon or it's got some electrical issues. And often we don't take the time to look for the real keeper, where it's a 1 owner, no issues, and they just didn't drive it that often. Taking the time to slow down, to strive to be in tune with God, to listen to him, requires a grittiness that is that's real, just as it requires an accountability to the relationship with God, to know that I'm going to use my voice to, again, still challenge the issues that are in front of me. I'm not going to put my hands up and say, well, I'm going to a new job, so I'm done. Or I'm going to a new church, I'm done. Or I'm going to a new marriage and I'm done. No, I'll carry all those same things with me to the next place if I don't deal with this in a healthy way. And with, one of the big things for me is that I'm going to see these people again, if, whether I'm seeking to win them to Christ or they're actually believers, and I'm going to see them in heaven. So I should love, whether it's church individuals or coworkers or neighbors. They let their dogs poop on my yard. Yep, it happened again. I'm going to love them with the understanding that they, God could call them to him. I'm praying for that. And if they're a future saint, I want to help them see, God's grace and not my selfishness or my shallowness.
Is that it? We done?
I think that's my soapbox for today. I haven't stood on it in a while, so
I think that's good. So I'm going to share with you the questions that, these are the questions that I jotted down as we were talking. But these are the questions that I jotted down because they're the questions that I think, let me start here. These are the questions that I often ask as I'm going through this process myself. And I think that they align with Scripture, and I'll tell you why after I go through some of these questions. So question number 1, are you stretching me, God? Are you doing this to stretch me? That can be changing. That can be identifying sin. That can be teaching me to trust you. Are you stretching me? Is that why you're doing this? Are you producing a testimony through me? Is this not about me at all? This is about you demonstrating your glory, and I'm the vessel through which you work. Are you healing me? Now, I may have done nothing wrong, but because I'm a broken person, I don't mean broken in the sin sense. I mean broken in I've been marred by sin. The image of God in me has been shattered. As a result, I need to be healed. I need to be made whole. And often, just like going to the doctor, that process is painful. And it's hard to hold on to. It's hard to hold on in the midst of the surgical pain that we experience in that. Other questions. Are you using my struggle or my suffering for someone else's benefit? Is this not about me at all? Again, this goes back to the idea of the testimony that you're building, but are you doing this? Is the pain I'm going through kind of like labor? Is it for a good that you're going to do for someone else? And it's not about me, and really, I need to change my total perspective here. It needs to be realigned. Are you calling me to let go? Oftentimes this is control. I think about James. Where do wars and quarrels come from among you? Don't they come from your selfish desires, which are not fulfilled? You want, you don't get, and so you steal and you can't have, so you kill. And it shouldn't be this way. We want things and we can't get them, and we get angry, and we experience that as suffering. A couple more here. Am I out of line? Is the other person out of line? Are we both out of line? All of these are questions that help me practically as I'm going through the struggle to say, Lord, what are you calling me to do? Are you calling me to stick in this? Or are you letting me go? Are you letting me exit stage right? What's actually going on? And I have to sit with him. I have to ask him these questions and wait for him to answer. And then even after he answers, it's not good enough. It's like, oh, God answered. He said it's about you. You're being an idiot. I'm not the problem. I've got nothing to do with this. He's working on you, so I'm out. Like, that's be nice if that's how God answered, but rarely is that the answer. Jonah quit by running off to Tarshish. He quit in the call that he was given because he didn't want to go through the difficulty, the struggle of facing his own bias and hatred, his own sense of injustice. Samson quit on his calling because he didn't want to deny himself. When faced with the same situations or similar situations, I do the same thing. And it's easy for me to justify to myself that what I'm doing, I've heard from God, and now I'm going to bring it to you so that you can pat me on the back and say, oh, Jer, you're suffering so well. I can't believe you're really a hero, Jer. And if only people saw how well you suffered and how unfairly you're treated and how unjust this is, my goodness, you're a demigod among men. That's what I want. I mean, I'll be honest. That is what I want. And oftentimes that's what I actually think. And then like the Holy Spirit just, hey, bud, you're not that hot. I'm like, what do you mean? When God tells you you're not that hot, like, you have two choices: listen and change, or harden yourself and try to kill God. But that's pretty much it. These questions, I think, are questions that Joseph and David wrestled with throughout their lives of suffering, that Job wrestled with. Think about David. David has been anointed king. The prophet has come and said, I'm anointing you. You are now, by virtue of this anointing, you are God's chosen king. And for something like 20 years, David goes and serves the guy who's still king, is attacked, is pursued to be killed by the guy who's still king, and regularly puts his life in jeopardy for the guy who's still king so that guy's life and his kingdom can be kept safe. You got to imagine David's asking God, what are you doing? Why can't I just go to Jordan? Why can't I just run up to Tyre and hang out there until Saul dies? Or until you demonstrate it's time for me to step into the CEO chair? Why can't I do that? And I don't know that God ever directly answered David, but what I can say is this. When we look through the Psalms, what we see is that David did wrestle with these issues. And he did turn to God and he said, God, why are you doing this? God, what are you doing? God, I can't see it. God, if there is something in me, show me. And more than everything else, be my strength and my foundation and my stronghold and my fortress. A fortress is not there so that we can quit. A fortress is something that we run into for safety and oftentimes barely make it by the skin of our teeth because of the arrows and the spears falling around us. And God does describe the paradise that he's bringing us to. But that's at the beginning of the book and that's at the end of the book. The entirety of the rest of the story is God describing the fortress that he is to his people. But God, are you healing me? God, are you stretching me? God, are you teaching me about yourself? Are you calling me into a deeper relationship with you? Wrestling with that question will allow you to hear God's voice speaking to you as your Father, saying, no, I have you here. Not only did I place you here, but I have you here right now, in the midst of this, for your good. Yes, I see all of it, and I know what I'm doing. You can trust me. When we get that answer, the next question has to be, well, then, God, what are you calling me to do? If you're not saying I can quit, what are you calling me to do? This is where I think of Ephesians, having done all to stand, stand therefore. It might be that stand therefore just means you suffer well. How many times have you and I had to say this to people who are going through difficult suffering? And all we can say to them is the Lord sees you. Continue to suffer well. I will pray with you and I'll walk with you, because there's nothing else we can do.
It happens more often than not. And
it does.
People don't, like that answer, but It is one where we can ask and wait for God. And in that waiting, we have to be patient. And I don't know how long it's going to be. I don't know how long, you're going to have to wait to get a response. And sometimes that is the response. It's just waiting and being close to God, and us coming together. I was texting a gentleman who was diagnosed with cancer a few months ago now, and he's in treatment. Mm-hmm. And he was sharing how it's been impressive to see how his family's come together. And so I was just texting how, I'm so happy for him. And I also think that that's unfortunate that it's only in times of trials. And he didn't understand it because it was a text as opposed to a conversation. He was like, why is that unfortunate? I think it's a great thing that everyone came together. And I was like, it's just sad that it didn't happen before this. Like, there was no reason why you all couldn't be close without you having to go through this trial. And yet that is often how we move, especially in our culture. We wait until the big thing happens and then we pull together and strive to forgive, strive to be generous, and strive to be patient with one another. But it's in those trials that we should learn a better way and move forward out of that, and not have to repeat it to keep learning the same thing over and over again. I do think the more you get better at hearing God's voice, the easier it is to recognize the season that you're in and go, oh,
that means it's easy to stay in it, right?
So what?
That means it's easy to stay in it, right?
It is one of those things where it becomes
I'm saying that facetiously, of course.
I know, and I'm wrestling with it because I think it becomes a space for being able to say, God, I need more faith. Like, I can be honest because I know where we are, and I remember this, and I know I don't like this, and I know it's uncomfortable, and so I need more of you. Like, if that's what we're doing here, I already know what I need. There
might be more trust. There might be more peace because of the trust that you have, but it doesn't make the day-to-day experience any easier at all. In fact, in some ways, it makes it harder. Because at least if this is just an accident of the cosmos, then the suffering that you or I go through doesn't actually have a purpose. It's just a crapshoot, and these are the cards that came up. But when God says, hey, I'm doing this and I've got you, and this is temporary, but I'm not going to tell you how long it's going to be, that can be much harder for us to sit with. And yet, again, going back to Joseph, I think about Joseph and I think about what he walked through on his way to the palace in Egypt. Here you have a guy who's he's going to be killed. He's thrown into a well to die. He's pulled up out of there and sold into slavery. He becomes a slave in a house. He's wrongfully accused. He's wrongfully incarcerated. He serves in that incarceration. He gets his get out of jail free card, and the guy slips it into a pocket and forgets about it. At every single one of these instances, Joseph had, I guarantee you, he was faced with this. Do I give up? Do I despair? Or do I continue on? And what he understood, the call of God to him is simply this: wherever you find yourself, and this is how Paul said it, wherever you find yourself and whatever your hand finds to do all to the glory of God, knowing that it's from the Lord that you will receive your reward, and not from men. Sometimes what he's calling us to do is to stay in the struggle. Sometimes what he's calling us to do is address the wrong that we are seeing and that we're suffering under. Even if addressing that wrong means that we're going to be taken out back and quietly shown to a grave. It doesn't tell us what the outcome is going to be. What he does tell us is that he'll be with us, which, has to take us back to the three bros. Know this, O king, we will not bow down to your idol. We serve a God. Know this, O king, you may throw us into the fire. Our God is able to save us, but even if he doesn't, we're going to obey him. I think when it comes to the practical side of quit versus grit, we really have to take a lesson from those who have come before us and the way that they have answered this question. And ask ourselves, were they fools? Because if they weren't, I think that we have a lot to learn from them.
I think we've got our homework for today. If we didn't step on your toes, we tried. If we missed,
like a polka dancer on a pogo stick.
If we missed, listen to it again. I'm sure we didn't. God bless you. We're thankful for you. And be encouraged that as you wrestle through the messy stuff of life with relationships, that is, again, a beautiful thing where you get to meet and know before we step into the new heavens and new earth, an eternal being. And don't take that for granted. Don't miss the moment. Remember, you're a child of God. You're a child. And play. Have fun. Cry. Hug. Laugh. Be open, because you are a child of God and there's nothing to fear. This is Anchored and Devoted. That was Pastor Jer. I am Pastor Joseph. Go get it. And go rest with God.